This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome. You've heard what the media and the politicians have to say about North Carolina topics. Now let's get the correct North Carolina spin from our panelists.
NC Spin, I believe, will be remembered mostly for the variety of panelists who appear on the show. Different philosophies, different positions on different issues, but all done in the spirit of cordiality.
The particular discussion I remember on NC Spin was one of my first shows, and it's when Chris Fitzsimons and John Hood got in the most ferocious fight over some issue I've ever could imagine. I mean, these guys were yelling at each other across the table, and I'm sitting there and I looked at Tom, and he just has this slight grin on his face and watching them go at it. And so I was just horrified. I thought, this is not going to come across very well to the viewing audience. And yet there they were. And then I was amazed that after we went off set and everybody was going home, they walked out together and slapped each other on the back and said, "This was a great show tonight, wasn't it?"
I think the legacy of NC Spin is easy to state, perhaps, but it's probably hard to fully appreciate the significance of it. And the legacy is that we have demonstrated you can have strong opinions, you can choose difficult, challenging, controversial topics, you can have spirited discussion, but you don't have to act like a bunch of jackasses. In this current environment, those combinations don't seem possible, and yet we've shown over 2 decades they're quite possible. This is not a sedate show where everybody just sort of pulls on their chins and turns and agrees with each other. That's not the kind of show this is. This is a show full of disagreement, representing all the different points of view in North Carolina, and yet it represents North Carolina in another sense, the ability of North Carolinians, even as they disagree, even as they have some fundamentally different ideas about what to do, still have a shared sense of what it means to be a North Carolinian and a shared hope for a better North Carolina in the future.
Well, invariably, when I am out in public and people will see and recognize me from NC Spin, one of the things they always say is they either say, "I agree with you and John Hood is wrong," or "I agree with John Hood all the time and you're wrong," but they always follow that with, "I appreciate how you guys talk to each other and I appreciate the tenor of the debate, and it's nice to be able to turn on a television show, hear about the politics and the policies happening in North Carolina without people calling each other names or screaming." And I think they really, people across North Carolina, I think, have come to appreciate the civil discussion. It's one of the few places you can turn on, hear people be respectful, but also get a lot of information about what's happening in North Carolina.
One of the greatest joys of NC Spin has been the many friends that I've made over the years. Even people that I disagree with on many of the important issues. There's just a tremendous respect among the NC Spin family.
When I'm walking around, people will stop me and they'll say, "Where have we met?" And I'll be like, do you know my mom? Do you live in Raleigh? Have you ever been to Burlington? And then they'll go, "No, I know, you're on television." And I was like, "Oh yes, I'm very fancy." And then they'll lean in, and I think they're going to ask me how did I get to be on television? And they invariably ask the same question: what are Tom Campbell, John Hood, and Rufus Edmondson really like? And it always makes me laugh because I think each of those people has their own following. I mean, obviously Tom is adored for the balance he brings and the excitement he brings to covering issues of the day in North Carolina in a very deep and thoughtful fashion.
People make sure they check in and watch because they know they will get unfettered news, they will get strong, intelligent opinion, albeit sometimes contrary, but nonetheless they'll get it. And the show makes them think. And it should also make them proud to be North Carolinians. So what do people say to me? They enjoy NC Spin, they love it, they're dedicated to it, and they want more of it. That's what they say to me.
I'm often talked to by people about Spin, and I've been on since the beginning, and I frankly enjoy hearing people talk about it. It's a show that I dearly love.
We hope you've enjoyed our spin on North Carolina issues. Come back next week when we take on 4 brand new topics and give you North Carolina spin.
And we can go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue.
When we started NC Spin September 8, 1998, we never knew this journey would last more than 22 years and 1,154 shows. During this time, we've been honored that you have welcomed us into your homes, and we've appreciated your comments, good and bad. We've had the opportunity to visit with people like a U.S. Senator, congressmen, governors, university presidents, business and religious leaders, along with elected and appointed leaders in government. We've been surrounded by smart and articulate and dedicated panelists who've offered opinions about in-depth issues important to our state, offerings that were civil and honest and balanced. They are the true stars of NC Spin. And I can't name all of these wonderful people, but I do want to thank our founding panelists, John Hood and Chris Fitzsimon. We've treasured the underwriting support from civic-minded organizations who were willing to put their resources into making sure that public policy discussions were broadcast in North Carolina, especially the North Carolina Farm Bureau, the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians, and the North Carolina Electric Membership Co-ops. And we learned early on that the people behind the camera are perhaps more important than those of us in front. And we've been blessed to have a long-standing crew from our 19 years on WRAL. I wish I had time to mention all their names, but I have to single out our director for more than 16 years, Clarence Williams, who breathed the life into NC Spin and helped create the look that you've seen for so many years. In addition, our production team at UNC-TV has put new energy into this show, especially since having to deal with the virus this past year, and they are invaluable friends. And I have to mention Nick Fuchs, who came in off vacation to produce this last show for us. I also have to thank the Carolina broadcasting team of Richard Campbell, Cynthia Whitaker, Matt Corey, and Giordano Restelli. Our television crew and our show is ending, but we'll still produce our weekly newsletter and post pieces on our website, ncspin.com, and NCSpin on Facebook. Saying goodbye is too hard, so like always, I'll just ask you to stay informed and watch out for the spin.